Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the beat repeat. My name is Playgue, and let's jump straight into it. So we're going to talk about the parameters of the beat repeat. We have type and length, and that is literally it. Super straightforward effect. Pretty straightforward on how it works too, but there's some nuances that we can talk about. But let's talk about the parameters first. The type, we have three different types. We have forward, we have rewind, and we have mix. Forward is pretty straightforward. It plays it forward. So whatever beat we capture, it will just repeat it forward. Rewind will take the sample and it will play it back in reverse. It will take a moment to catch up and register, I guess. It takes about an eighth note. Then it'll just repeat, immediately go into a repeat of that segment, but it'll reverse that segment. It processes it a little bit differently, so I'll show you an example. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 off here with no off. 1 off here with no off here with no with no with 1 with no with. And then we have mix. Mix is interesting. This will double the length, and it does this because it plays it forwards, then in reverse, then forwards, then in reverse, like a seesaw. 1, 2, with no 1, 2, with no 1. Notice that this is a half note, but it took a full measure for the repeat to happen. If I have it on a quarter note, it's going to take a half note to do the full repeat. 1, no 1, no 1, no 1. But the captured portion is only a beat. It's only the one that is being repeated, but it's taking 2 beats to fully repeat that segment. If your length is longer than the track itself, it will not double it. So in this case, I have it as a full measure. Doubled, that is 2 whole notes. This is only one measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore, nothing happens because it doesn't have the loop space to rewind that next segment. One note about this parameter is if you change this parameter while something is already captured, it will act as if you turned the effect off and then back on again. That will make more sense once we talk about how the effect works, how like the effect itself works. But something to be aware that when you change the type, it will change the new capture point, which will make sense in a little bit. Let's just move on to talking about the last parameter, and then we can talk about how this effect works. So the next parameter is length. What length is this determines the length of the segment that will be repeated. And this length segment is always on beat with the tempo. So the capture point will start on beat every single time, no matter when you start the actual repeat. If you have it as one measure, you can't just start the repeat in the center of the measure and then have it repeat that direction and like shift the sound and then have it repeat. You'd have to do a beat shift with the beat repeat to do something like that. In summary, if you capture a part at an eighth note, it will repeat that eighth note segment forever at an eighth note every eighth note. So it is not shifting anything. It will just keep repeating that segment. You can change this all you want, and this is controlled by the knob, and the point of capture will remain the same no matter what you change it to, which is really nice. So how does the beat repeat work? Okay, so imagine you take your loop and break it down into its length segments that you have your parameter set to. Let's say our track is 4 measures long, and we set it to a whole measure, then it will take that 4 measure loop, break it into 1 measure segments, and then repeat those segments. If we change it to a half, then it'll become 8 half note segments, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So now that you understand what length really means, let's talk about how to get the beat repeat to work. So what it will do is when you turn the effect on, it will take the last start of the length segment. Say you have a whole note again, you start on the 3rd beat of the part that you want repeated, it will begin its repeat at the start of the measure, regardless of when you push the button. I'll give you an example. We have 2 half note segments. We have a 1, 2, and then we have the 3, 4. What we should hear is right now, if I just have it on and I don't have the track started yet, it's going to pretend like I pushed it the moment I started this track. So it's just going to repeat the 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. If I were to start it on somewhere in the half note here, which is the 3, 4 in this case, then it will repeat that segment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. And it does not matter where in that half note or that half measure that I start it, it's going to start there regardless. It's going to start at the beginning of that half note. And same thing with a quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 2, 2. So I'll give you a practical example here. This track 4 is 8 measures long, but I have a beat repeat set for, let's say, a whole note. So it's going to play through that whole note and just repeat that whole note each time. Right? All right, so now let's repeat just that first part. Notice, though, that this continues looping. So even though it's repeating, the loop continues on throughout its thing. So when I stop or turn off this effect, it'll go back to where it was playing on the original track. So you would have to let it cycle through an entire loop to go back to the point where you had it captured in order for it to continue on from where it was. Otherwise, it's just going to start up where the loop is currently on. All right, let's talk about another feature of the beat repeat, which is another feature of some of these track effects, that you can record what you capture or the effect that you have on, which is really, really dope. I'll give you a very easy to understand example. Let's say I record a kick into a delay, have it repeat for some amount of measures, so then they all sound the same, and I do that for a quarter note each time. Then what I can do is I can go into beat repeat, set it at whatever time I want, and make a new drum pattern. Cool. With that said, let's talk about cool tricks you can do with the beat repeat. All right, so the first one that I can think of is if you need to double or quadruple time anything, like snares, hi-hats, kicks, in silence, you can do that. Now, it's better, in my opinion, to use the beat scatter because you don't have to be as precise. You have a larger segment of time. If you just put on a P4, you don't have to be exact with your repeating, although you are limited to a 16th note. You can't do a 32nd note with the beat scatter, but I talk more about this technique in the beat scatter tutorial. Another thing about the beat repeat is that it is harder to capture things at shorter lengths because you have to get the start or somewhere in between that amount of time, which is very, very difficult to do. So you may only have a 16th note of leeway into getting the correct sound. So an example with like Au revoir, and I want to capture a very specific moment in this track. I don't want to capture the chorus sound. I do want to capture the crazy rim shots that are happening. So I have a beat repeat of an 8th note, but this track is 190 BPM. So that 8th note is very, very short of amount of time, and we're trying to capture that one part right there, which is very difficult. Another cool trick that you can use the beat repeat for is you can use it as a build-up for a drop. So like for just bangers, I use it as a build-up and just increase the length to build up to the actual drop of the song. So you don't necessarily have to just like multiply your kicks or multiply your snares. You can do it to just any track and just increase the length for it to feel and be a build-up. Next tip is to be aware when changing the length when it's captured. Remember my animation from earlier where it basically breaks down into segments and captures it from the start of each segment? Well, here's how it really works. Each loop is broken into 30-second notes because that is the quickest time that this device can break down the loops in. The length is actually determining how many of those 30-second notes to play back. Why is this an important distinction? Well, let's say you capture a whole note, but you capture just after the third beat. It will play from the start to end of the measure that you wanted. Great, we talked about this. However, let's say you change it to a half note. Now it's repeating from the third to the end of the measure. Then we change it to a quarter. Now it's not playing the fourth beat at all. Then we change it to an eighth, and it sounds like nothing is playing. What happened? Well, earlier I said we would start it just after the third beat. So the track is now repeating not the start of the third beat, but the second half of the third beat, which in this case is between your piano notes or between your granular delay notes or oscillator bot notes or whatever. These are the things that you want to keep in mind when changing, or more specifically, keeping in mind when you actually capture the beat repeat. Even if it is like, it won't matter for the whole note or the half note or even the quarter note, it may matter if you intend to change that note to something much faster, because it remembers what segment you started or what 30-second note segment you started the beat repeat on. So then if you jumped to 30-second note, it already knows where to repeat. My advice is that it is easier to hit the correct part at the start of a beat or a measure. So some places that I end up using this is God of Loops, for example. I sometimes will backtrack to make sure I captured the correct part that I wanted. Yeah. So give it. You wanna jump up and move like a make sure that I captured this kick, so then when I go to the part that I actually want to be heard, because I do this with fader down in silence, then I go up and it will sound the same. If I had just gone straight to this, it would still sound like that. Then change it to the eighth note for the build-up, I would be doing that hi-hat instead of this. I will allow it to play through. I will capture the part where I think it is as I'm playing it in my own head, and then I will just fader up and down real quick just to hear that I had it right. And then I will go back to a quarter note, and that's when I will start playing through whatever I needed to. All right, speaking of God of loops, let's talk about a God level trick. This can become your 6th track. So I've talked about 6th tracks and where your 6th track is on your loop station in the advanced tricks tutorial. There's a lot of different hidden 6th tracks on this device, and the beat repeat is one of those 6 tracks. So as demoed with God of Loops, you can use this like a 6th track. So I now have hand banging too hard with this. Anyways, you have something that is, I don't even remember what the point I was going with. God damn it. Another way to have the 6th track is to record something or overdub that captured whatever and then undo it. You have your original track, and then you could just redo it. And when you redo it, that is the 6th track that is now coming into play. One last thing I will talk about with the beat repeat is you can really go hard on the beat repeat. Like, really, really hard. And that is it. That is the beat repeat in a nutshell. Hopefully this gives you some interesting ideas that you can play around with and create new and exciting tracks with the beat repeat. The fact that you can overdub is already OP. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. Yeah, have fun with this.
Good stuff. That's the good stuff. Yeah.
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 Dude. Ooh. Mic drop, I almost unplugged the loop station. Oh my god!